catch-up. Thank you very much. Now, let's bring in our panel tonight because we've got a lot to get through. Joining me is former Liberal MP Nicole Flint and Pauline Hanson's One Nation Chief of Staff James Ashby. Nicole and James, as usual, welcome to you both. Let's get stuck into it with this coalition private members bill set to hit the parliament next week that's going to crack down on criminals posting their exploits online. Peter Dutton would give the Federal E-Safety Commissioner, this is a Peter Dutton coalition policy, powers to not only have takedown orders, but criminalise the act of promoting crime online. Nicole, you think that's a good idea? Is it possible to even do it?
It's an excellent idea, and once again, Peter Dutton is showing Australians what strong leadership looks like. And I think we'd all like to know where on earth is Anthony Albanese on this issue. So Peter Dutton has once again demonstrated that he's tough on crime and that he has the safety of Australians first and foremost in his mind. He's also shown Australians that he knows exactly which laws can be used to achieve this outcome. He will be using, I believe, the Criminal Code Act and the E-Safety Act, so he's across his brief as usual. And he's been quite creative with the solution here. That's exactly what we want to see from a leader. And, you know, finally, we are seeing some action, Steve. We are seeing a leader who is willing to act. And the question Australians should be asking themselves around the nation is, where is Prime Minister Anthony Albanese? Where is the federal Labor government? And what on earth are the state Labor governments doing about this terrible crime wave that we are currently experiencing?
Yeah, it's right through the country. I mean, it's particularly bad in suburban Melbourne. It's particularly bad in regional towns in Queensland, Alice Springs, Darwin. James, it is a big issue in Queensland. Would One Nation support this idea of making people who are trying to post this stuff make it a criminal offence to actually do that? Because what other way are we going to stop this from happening? The police don't have the resources, it doesn't seem.
Yeah, look, well done to Peter Dutton for coming up with the solution here. It is a solution. The federal government do have the power. At the end of the day, the federal government can make laws on carriage services. Every one of these devices that these young crims are posting their exploits to appear to be using a carriage service, whether that be the internet or a mobile phone. So there is avenues there for the federal government to step in and make laws. They must be prepared, though, to build more prisons, because if we're going to establish federal law, we need to make sure that we've got prisons that aren't overcrowded, that we can put these crims in, because this is not going to be an easy solution. Facebook are very reluctant to take much stuff down unless it's COVID related. We've made complaints to Facebook about animals being mistreated online, and there are pages upon pages of animals being mistreated. They won't do anything about it. So they won't take down the exploits of criminals. Peter Dutton's on the right path here. The coppers would certainly welcome it because, unfortunately, this behaviour breeds more bad behaviour by young teens who like to, for some reason, see themselves online. It's their way of being little mini celebrities. Unfortunately, the social media accounts that they get, the views that they count, that's inspiring them even more. So something has to be done. We've got to stop the criminal behaviour, particularly by our youth.
Yeah, Nicole, James makes a good point there. You know, out of Victoria here, though, the Victorian Labor government, the most left-leaning government apart from the ACT in the country, they're very reluctant to put any of these youngsters into youth detention. In fact, they have a policy on the books where they're actually going to increase the age of criminal intent and take it up to, I think, eventually up to 14, where it's lower than that now. So you've got to have state governments who, you know, Peter Dutton can do this all he likes. You've got to have state governments who are on the same page, don't you?
Precisely, Steve, and they actually have the primary responsibility for law and order in this area. And what the Victorian government is saying to these kids, who I understand are terrorising whole suburbs throughout Melbourne, is that there are no consequences for your actions, and it is absolutely not good enough. And again, I'm really pleased to see Peter Dutton showing what leadership on an issue like this can look like.
Nicole, you're in federal parliament for a long time. Have you ever seen a minister so incompetent and still keeping his job than Andrew Giles, and the complete mess he's made of the visa system. First of all, we get all of these convicted criminals who are released back into the public. Now we find out that there's Palestinian women with their children halfway to Australia and they get bundled off a plane and get told to go back to Egypt. How's this bloke still got a job?
I really don't know, and Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has a lot of questions to answer. Labor seem to have absolutely no control over the immigration and home affairs portfolios, and you've used the word incompetent. That is precisely what they are. How can you stuff up visa conditions for people who are actually on the plane? I mean, the Coalition was warning that these visa conditions need to be looked at very carefully before the visas were issued, and then Labor decides, well, these poor people are in the air, that they're going to retract their visas. It's just bizarre. And as you've mentioned, it comes on the back of the fact that Labor managed to release, 149 criminal detainees into the community because they hadn't preemptively planned for the High Court ruling that was handed down late last year. And then they've let them into the community and put them on the wrong visas. I mean, Andrew Giles has to go. I cannot believe that Anthony Albanese has not intervened. It is just embarrassing, but also it's putting Australians in danger, and it is unacceptable, and Albanese needs to act.
Yeah, again, it's a lack of leadership. James, I mean, you go back one step, you just wonder how we were making decisions to grant these visas to these people in the first place. We've all got sympathy for innocent people who are inside Gaza with children who want to get out and don't want to have their children live in schools where they're going to get bombed one day. So if they get that opportunity to get out, they'll grab it. But how can we possibly be confident that the checks and balances, the right checks and balances, have been done on any of these people?
Yeah, it's a great question, and some of these visas have been granted within 1 hour of application. I'm sorry, coppers are hardly able to do a police check on somebody within an hour, let alone an immigration check at the same time. And Steve, I've got a real problem with using Australia as a safe haven when we have 122,000 homeless Australians in this country that can't get a roof over their head. How in God's name are we supposed to put a roof over these people's heads for the next 12 months? Now, they say they're a protection visa for 12 months, but we all know they never leave the country, or very rarely leave the country, because at the end of the day, Labor, if they're still in power at that time, they'll just grant them permanent residency or citizenship. So this is not the right solution. If these people need safe havens, there's plenty of countries nearby that are safe and secure, and they're Muslim nations as well. Go to them. Australia's a long way away. We don't need you. We've got nowhere to house you. Sorry. Ta-da.
The Teals and the Greens, James and Nicole, always seem to want to lecture us about, we've got to look after the environment and, we shouldn't be wasting money. But you look at these expenses that what the taxpayers have forked out, $12.5 million in printing costs for politicians from July to December, 1,000 of that coming from Adam Bant, 87,000 from Teal, Kylie Tink, Allegra Spender, Sophie Scamps, they're all in there. I mean, James, how carefully inside One Nation do you watch this sort of stuff, this potential wastage?
Steve, there needs to be a change to the way in which communication budgets are actually spent. Lower house MPs are able to spend it on a broader range of things, including radio advertising, print, postage. Some of these things have got extraordinarily expensive. They can also spend it on social media. Can I just say, if there's one positive to come from this, it's the fact that they are spending them with Australian printers. There's an enormous number of small printers. I came from a printing background myself as well. So when I do see figures like this, yes, of course it's over the top, but I will say it's better they're spent with Australian printers. It's a shame we don't manufacture paper here anymore, apart from uncoated stuff, but it is better to be spending it on those means of communication than it is to be spending it with offshore social media outlets. The money goes offshore and overseas.
Nicole, without naming names, do some people end up getting elected to federal parliament and then think, you beauty, here I go, I've got an open chequebook here to do what I want?
I don't think that that's the case, Steve. Well, I certainly hope that that's not the case. But I think in the example you've given of Adam Band and the Greens, who are always on about, you know, extreme environmental measures we should all be taking, why are they using any paper? Personally, when I was a federal MP, it's a really important way to communicate with your local community, and James has made an excellent point about the local printers that you managed to support by doing so. But, you know, you've got to use a range. You still need to use a range of communications to connect with your local community, because not everyone is on social media. So that's only one way to get in touch with people. Print is still a very powerful form of communication.
James, Nicole, thank you very much. We'll talk to you again.